Yeah, I'm very pleased to be part of the Venice Festival International and this series. So, yeah, my name is Munya Radzi, and I'm from Regularize, which is a migrant-founded and migrant-led grassroots campaign group and collective which seeks to improve the quality of life of all undocumented or irregularized migrants in the UK by attaining basic rights and a safer and equitable path to settlement and citizenship. Literally, this is a struggle for liberation and freedom and a struggle against xeno-racist oppression perpetrated by European governments and experienced by our community. So I guess, you know, I just want to say thanks to everyone for joining us today. As we come together in this virtual space, I guess a virtual sitting around a fire to celebrate as well as share and address some of the stories of migration through poetry from the African community on the continent and in the diaspora. This event, as mentioned by Emma, is and as you may know, is a reading and discussion series focused on African migration. And today we'll be exploring some of the poems submitted for the report that has been mentioned, the African Migration Report, Poetry and Short Story Anthology, Volume 1, which we're collaborating with Forced Migration in the Arts and CivicLeicester. And I guess we see this as the first of many volumes, each contributing to ongoing conversations around African migration. And this project, as you might have guessed, and as expressed in the call for this anthology, draws inspiration from the African Union and IOM's African Migration Report. And our anthology is a way to both address and expand on that dialogue through the mediums of art, poetry, and storytelling. And we plan to expand on these mediums in due course. And next, we've got Helidah Ogude-Chambert.
Thank you, Munya. And thank you, everyone, for being here. It's quite an honor. I don't consider myself a poet. This is the first time I'm reading my poetry in public. So it's quite a pleasure to be amongst such incredible poets. I'm based in Oxford at the moment. I'm South African and Kenyan, so I'm really missing the sun. And so I guess poetry for me is a way of getting some sunshine in a sense, and a way of me reaching out to people that I really care about, who many of whom are in South Africa and in Kenya, but also across the continent indeed. I'll be reading 2 poems today, but I wanted to say just a few words about the kinds of ideas that have shaped the poems I will read today. The first is this idea of bodies of water. I'm always thinking about bodies of water, I mean, primarily in 2 ways. Firstly, in a material sense, thinking about places like the Mediterranean Sea and all the living beings that live within that sea. But I also think of us as human beings, as bodies of water, because we're primarily composed of water ourselves. And I also think about how, we're not discrete entities, in the sense of how Western logics might suggest that we are, that we're actually porous, we're constantly drinking, we're urinating, we're sweating, we're weeping. So we're always in a way relating to the world in this kind of fluid embodiment, if you will. And so in my poems, I think of human beings as bodies of water, and I think about deaths at sea and the kind of currents that those deaths bring to the sea. And so I often write about how these currents, they bear the weight of coloniality, but they also carry the buoyance of resistance, of imagination, And I often think about these currents that are, in a way, always insisting on showing other ways of acting in the world. Something else I've been thinking about a lot is cruelty, this notion of cruelty, especially how it seems as though, you know, certain societies take pleasure in public spectacles of violence. And so I try to give shape to that cruelty through my poems in a way that resonates with the kind of relentless and preventable suffering that I feel that I'm seeing in many places, and certainly in the African continent. Okay, I think I'll read my poems now. They're fairly short. The first one is called Knotted Bodies of Water. How do we map Black death? Black Africa, Black Atlantic, Black Pacific, Black Mediterranean. Time bends back upon itself, stretching into the ongoingness of ordinary atrocities. For the Black African, time unfolds as violence. Again, in and through, the violence time unfolds layers of bodies, spectacle lynchings as drownings. How do we map the wounds that remain? What crooked lines do these remains make on the seabed haunted by the silence of the dead? Knotted bodies of water, holding each other in something other than damage. That's the first poem. The second poem is called Strange Fish. He swam in the glare of the sun in the depths of our deep blue sea, scrambling, heaving, sinking, washed up. They killed him by the ships that abandon in their sea that swallows, scrambling, heaving, gasping, drifting, surrounded by strange fish, washed up. They killed him, I said, all of them, in broad daylight on sunny European beaches, faceless, nameless, unnamed, forgettable, forgotten, unmournable. They killed us again and again, 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 and again, and again. Strange fish rotting in their sea. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Helidah. Next is Ellie Ray. Ellie Ray, are you here? No. Okay, so Ellie isn't here. So I will go on to Laurène Southe.
Yes, thank you for letting me speak my piece on that. Just to quickly introduce myself, my name is Laurène Southe. I was born in Austria, raised in Switzerland, and I grew up in Peckham. I am here today because although I do not have much experience with migration, I think my current unreleased book that I have poetry book that I have concerns a little bit about it. And I'm a second generation, so of course my experience in that will be limited. But all in all, a poem that I have today that I would like to share with you guys today is called Silent Genocide. And it basically talks about a certain area of the world being of Congolese heritage, and both of my parents coming of Eastern Congo. I would like to address that topic. So quick note on that, my mother migrated to Europe while one of the Congolese war was happening. So yeah, and she spoke a lot about her experience during that time. So I definitely relate to that topic, and also seeing the side effect of what war causes, and so on and so forth, brought me here to speak about in this topic. So I hope that everyone will enjoy it. Silent genocide. There is a silent genocide happening in a diamond and gold district. Its eastern citizens appear to be screaming in terror, but no acoustic roughness dare come out of their mouth. Instead, the horror is made visible through the purple rings beneath their sight, and within orbs, the sclera has changed to blood red, tears both running from their bloody eyes and noses, as if they had just seen Stanley's ghost. While they flee to a neighboring village, every step becomes lighter until they have completely transpired into waveless beings. Careful not to make a sound, they cross the streets and fields, trying not to walk on eggshells. Only the empty shells are planting grenades. When a bullet helplessly reaches the back, and transparent liquid quietly descends the flesh and leaves the temple they once housed, taking the source of life with them. Even by the way bombs fall from the skies, you would have thought it were unhurried rain, calming the thirst of a fiery ground, or handmade snowflakes for the never cared to row. Dead bodies are not met with proper burials like we know of them in the West. They silently reverse into dust on the same soil they had been executed. When a baby is born, it doesn't take long for it to crawl back into the mother's womb and entirely erase itself from existence. The journalist, in the midst of it all, takes out a device. But the camera doesn't flash. It stands still. And on the way home to the working desk, a pencil and piece of paper both escape to the tree they were cut. There's a chant with just a few lines, sung by the citizens turned into overnight soldiers. It goes, "My mother gave birth to me. I was born to die." But the hymn can only be heard by birds as it crosses the battlefield and makes its way to the heavens. Thank you very much. That will be the end of my poem, Silent Genocide.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Lauren. Yeah, and I'm not sure if we had any other poet on the agenda, Ambrose, because I know a couple of people couldn't make it, and I saw there was someone called Joseph, I think, who posted in the chat. I hadn't seen him on the agenda, so I don't know, like, did you want that one read out? Shall we read it out, or it's just for people to read for themselves?
I think it's best if people read for themselves,
Okay.
because we would like to have to talk as well. If you can't speak in this session, there are going to be other sessions coming weeks and months. It's going to be a long conversation. We've got much to talk about. I don't know if say might be one of the poets.
Yeah. I think mine is gonna be next week. I guess I was just keen to see what the whole thing was gonna look like. Just how I know it's
Okay.
gonna look like. I think I'm
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Say. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, cheers.
Right. So I think this is time for the other conversation session. Is that right, Munya?
Yes, it is now time for the next conversation. And I mean, before we go there, yeah, I just want to say, like, when I heard all of these poems, it's bringing up a lot of ideas in my mind, and I'm really hoping we can utilize whatever mediums we have in the arts these spaces and others to sort of, be able to address these issues, to address power. For just a little bit of my own culture, which is the Shona people, poetry is very important as a way to praise people. We've got praise poems, but also as a way to address power. And I think, I think we really, it will be similar with other African cultures across the continent and people in the diaspora, but we really need to use whatever means we have to ensure that those experiencing this injustice are able to, that we're able to sort of stand up and stand up and shout from the rooftops that this is wrong, but also to tell our own experiences of how this can be. Migration ought to be a positive thing, because the history of humanity is a history of migration, and history of migration is a history of humanity. For over 300,000 years, as Africans, we have been migrating. No one would exist if it wasn't for our migration. So yeah, I'm hoping the next conversation can address some of these things and more.
Thank you, Munya. Thank you. I think we start with the poets. Who wants to start? Who's got something that they want to say, stress, emphasize, comment on?
Can I start?
Yes, please.
I just wanted to say again, listening to these poets and their poems, very, very thought-provoking, and thank you for sharing your work. I think for me, even though I say that diversity will not erase history, I think that is because I just do not understand enough history, and the more I dig, the more I learn. But a collection of mine, which I really struggled with, was this sense of home. Home is neither here nor there, and I suppose that comes from having a child who is coming from, again, another country, another culture, and just trying to understand, when we are all here as assumably Africans or Black, and then there's these nuances, and also there are these themes that pop up of either genocide or apartheid or war, and how do we then connect our stories into having a sense of home and belonging? I suppose that's maybe a question, and also just sharing my own thought process when it comes to writing. Thank you.
Thank you, Nandi. I don't know, anyone else wants to come in?
If I may, I was very, I was quite moved. I think it's Kennedy, by your poem. I heard a lot about color in it, and I wanted to ask you what color means to you. There are lots of references to color, and I was wondering, what you meant by those references. And also that it's quite courageous for you to participate, knowing how, dangerous it is to be speaking about sexuality and in the context of what's happening in Uganda. So just to say that I admire your courage.
Thank you for that. Well, color to me, I use color a lot, and it's something that there's a time back I was speaking to a friend, and then he said he was speaking to somebody, and then he asked me whether that person is a colorful. So I asked him, what do you mean by that person is a colorful? And then he told me that he meant whether that person was queer. So we use the word colorfuls, but then the world has for the longest time been black or white. There are these roles, heteronormativity, how the world is meant to function. So that's black and white. Even when it comes to, let's say, when somebody's talking about the law, and then they say the gray areas of the law, those will be the areas that aren't black or white, that aren't clear cut out. So for me, to have color is to not fit within the usual, that is the black and white. So that's what color trials is about, as looking at somebody usually when you read about cases where people have been denied asylum because their sexual orientation has been rejected, the whole idea is that they have to prove that they are queer. And I read stories of a lady, a Ugandan lady, who actually lied about her sexuality, and all she had to do was change the way she dresses. So you find that with men, people expect queer men to be flamboyant and, you know, wear pink and all that kind of stuff. So what then happens if such a gentleman finds themselves before these courts? And that's where the poem came from. Like, you find that when you're home, you're denying who you are, and when you reach there, you're trying to say, no, this is actually who I am, but then you don't have proof because you are in that kind of flamboyant person that people expect all queer men to have to be. So yeah, that's what informed the poem.
Thank you, Helidah and Kennedy. Yes, Bridget.
I had a question. Well, this relates to you as well. To do with language, I can't remember who said what, the name. Somebody talking about learning African, as many African languages as possible. Well, I use sign language, trying to make it international. So I've got a poem by Ambrose that he gave me permission. I've changed it a bit sometime and been able to speak to lots of people who've migrated from different places and changed their stories, but I used exactly the same signs: over water, over land, through the desert, across the forests. I'm doing it out of the signs, and using it's the same sign for different language. And I just wondered if any other of you have ever used as a sign language translator. And this isn't British Sign Language. I really want to move away from British Sign Language because you can't match it with American anyway. And I've only learned recently that the alphabet A, B, K, D, E is exactly the same in Arabic. So although they write backwards, write in the opposite direction of us, of British people, the phonetic signs have the same sign language that I communicate, and try and involve it in, try and avoid the alphabet anyway, try and use concepts and whole expressions, right? But so it is very hard for poetry. Poetry's so beautiful, and if you change somebody's words, it's not theirs anymore. But I don't think of myself as a poet. I'm a storyteller, and Ambrose gave me a very powerful thing about being a storyteller years ago, and I now feel properly a storyteller, and it is empowering. Empowers other people.
Thank you, Bridget.
Because I mentioned learning different African languages.
Yes, you did. Yes.
I've never used sign language, official sign language, to convey a poem, but certainly when you are doing spoken word, very often you will use gestures, you will use your hands as you are talking.
Yes.
And not just hands, also your voice. And when I say your voice, I mean the tone of voice, the speed of your words, the volume of your voice as well. These audio cues within voice, as well as physical cues with your hands, is very important, I feel, to enhance the poetic expression that's coming forth.
Except, of course, deaf people can't hear the audio cues. You can sometimes see it in somebody's voice.
So that's where the gestures will come in with your hands, with your body language, and of course with your facial expressions. So often these type of communication cues are even more powerful than words. I'll give you an example. I could say to you right now, I'm really, really happy. Oh my God, I'm so happy right now. Can you see how happy I am? I'm so happy, right? Okay. So you heard what I was saying, but you also saw what my face was doing, and you also heard the tone of my voice. So what did you believe? Did you believe my words, or did you believe my face and the tone of my voice? Yeah.
And even
the
you're blind, even if because we're trying to do as inclusive as possible, but even the blind person will hear the tone of the voice, and the deaf person will see the expression. So you get a little bit of both.
Very much so. I mean, it's even the reason why people will have quite a strong emotional reaction to people singing in a language they don't understand. Because beyond the words itself, the actual timbre and the emotion that's being communicated is more potent, shall we say. So in that way, I guess there's still some type of, let's call it spontaneous sign language that can happen when poetry is being read or indeed performed. I also wanted to just quickly circle back to Didi's poetry, which you mentioned was very much based in the concept of water and, you know, how human bodies are more or less 60% water. Yeah, so the most of us is water, basically. And it's just lovely that you chose that fact to mold your poetry from, because it reminds me that in the Yoruba spiritual cosmology, which is called Ifa, if you think of Christianity having the Holy Trinity, as in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, in Ifa, we also have a Holy Trinity. We have Olodumare, who is the Father, and then we have the equivalent of the Son, Jesus, if Jesus had multiple twins, twin siblings, and these are called the Orisha. There's male Orisha and there's female Orisha. The vast majority of the female Orisha are linked to bodies of water, linked to oceans, linked to seas, to lakes, to rivers, yes? And I think that's because there's an association with life. Rivers and lakes, they're filled with life, they bring life. We are supposed to have come from the ocean. Yes, so originally all life is supposed to have done that. So I just think that's a really beautiful kind of inroads you have to your poetic expression. And I really enjoyed your poems today as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I think part of what I'm inspired by is also, you know, these African cosmologies and indigenous cosmologies with talk about the way we relate to one another as human beings, but relate to each other in the world as continuity, as opposed to demarcated by these, you know, sort of liberal bodies that we've been told. And of course, in multiple cultures, whether it's Ubuntu, that, you know, I am because you are, it's a kind of, I suppose I'm constantly thinking of how I reinscribe the fact that we as human beings are in the world and are making the world, are part of the world. We are connected to bodies of water through the various ways in which we excrete and ingest water and so on. And so, yeah, just to say that what you're saying completely resonates with what's inspired me to think about these ideas. Thank you.
And I also see a connection between your poem Helidah and Lawrence, like your focus on strange fruit, on strange fish, sorry, and Laurène, your focus on the crimes, the mass atrocities, the genocides that have been taking place in the DRC, possibly for the past 500 years.
I was going to ask Laurène about her poem as well. And I guess something about silence that's quite haunting when we think about silence and genocide. And I don't know, I didn't think much more beyond that, but I wondered if she had more to say about it. But because I think about cruelty, I think a lot about genocide in that context too.
Laurène, no need to raise your hands, you just come in. Come in. You are muted, come in.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I thought it was polite. All in all, concerning that word genocide, I really only started to come across it after what was occurring with Palestine, still is occurring with Palestine today. And all in all, how this poem came to be and why I use the word genocide personally is because I've seen a lot of correlation with what is currently happening in Gaza and what is ongoing in Eastern Congo. So in a way, I felt that that the word was fitting, and where silence comes from is just in general. I think all in all, when we talk about African concerns, but also just like world humanitarian crisis, I've always felt that the Congolese or the Congo conversation was never implemented. So in that sense, for me, and why I wrote this poem in the first place, is of course to shed light in what is currently occurring in Eastern Congo and has been occurring, I mean, since my mother was a little child, but most so to kind of give a voice, but also put on depth into the situation. So I don't know if you, all of you, have been able to understand or read some of the poem that I linked already on this chat. But all in all, that is to say, you know, the correlation of the Diamond and Gold District, which is occurring, you know, which happens in New York and so on and forth, and then speaking of the bombings and you know, mentioning a journalist and the fact that, you know, a lot of things that is happening in Congo doesn't get reported as much and so on and forth. So that was for me to trying to really kind of showcase the cycle of it all, perhaps also of a genocide in general, but again, in the Congolese context, that has been, in my opinion, missing in most conversation, like I said, when it comes to the African context and also humanitarian crisis across the globe. So I hope I said enough on that point.
And Nzingha, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just briefly to say, linking into what Abiodun and Ndidi were saying, we do have a sister, Dr. Michelle Yasantiwa, a Guyanese African spiritual warrior, who is actually organizing annually Oshun water rituals in Merton, in London, which I think is really great because it's a way of reconnecting us to such a lot of lost culture that many of us really don't even know exist, and why these things are so important to reconnect us as a people.
And Samuel, I think you also wanted to say something.
Yes, thank you so much for your beautiful poems. I must confess, the spoken words carry deep meanings and connections. All of the poets share their poems in a way that appeal to the soul of our spirit. For Abiodun, the way you connect the Yoruba background to your poems are very unique, and they speak of who we are, and that is massive. And just like what you said, spoken words are like spontaneous sign languages, like the speed of our voice, the tone, yes, and all those things are very unique. And all the poems are very beautiful. And to Didi, your poems are very short, but they are deep. I just want to ask, what is the inspiration behind your poems? Yes, what is the inspiration behind the poems? Thank you so much.
Thanks, Samuel. A lot of my poems, I'm at the center of them, I'm thinking about Black death and Black life, Black existence. And, you know, on the one hand, definitely talking about the very spectacular, but also often invisible ways in which masses of Black people are actively abandoned to death, such as in the Mediterranean Sea. But I also write about, you know, various ways in which Black people resist systems of oppression, and even through thinking about death as a form of resistance. And so in these poems, especially Knotted Bodies of Water, I was thinking about how, you know, the intergenerational presence of dead Black bodies through the transportation of Africans to the Americas and, you know, more recent deaths at sea, that part of Black resistance to those oppressive systems is haunting those seas, is that we are there, Black people are still there, and we can't be, we don't perish, we live in the water, we live through the water, we are the water. And so I guess it's important for me to capture what I think are often erased deaths, erased stories and lives, but also to recognize the multiple ways in which Black people are also showing us different ways that we can live, that borders are ridiculous, you know, and fundamentally unnatural, like Munya was saying, that people have been moving since the beginning of time, and people on the move, people who are migrating, many of whom are Black, are showing that these borders can be transgressed, they can be subverted. And yeah, in a way, they're showing us the world we could live in, which would be a beautiful world if we could all move, you know, because we need to move to live. So yes, and of course, Strange Fish is obviously inspired by Strange Fruit, the song by Billie Holiday, and what that references, of course, is the lynchings in the US South. And so another theme that sort of threads through my work is thinking about different modes of Black subjugation at different times in history, and sort of thinking about them as always present, sort of layering time and thinking about time as being layered and multiple and expansive, not as linear. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. But thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I think before we go to the end note, I think this might be a good point for anyone who's got maybe one or more poems that can carry us to the next conversation.
Could I do a jolly poem?
Sorry?
Could I do a poem that's
Yes,
quite
please.
funny? So
yes,
that
please.
we don't go away with
it doesn't have to be funny. It's just you just need you know, something
it's
that
not related to
will
migration.
carry us to the next conversation, you know, that sort of thing. Because
okay,
the issues are heavy. The issues that we are going to talk
indeed,
about are heavy. We are
and
not
for
running
us
away
as
from
a
them.
people, and for us as a people, this is our life, because
Yeah.
we're fighting constantly for our survival. We want change in the leadership in our different countries, because they're part of the problem that's keeping our people in condition. Anyway, it's a short poem. It's called Tarp Push, and it's in Jamaican patois as well as English. Me remember when me start nurse training up at Kingston Hospital. We are in a school for 6 weeks. Well, having gained entry to what I now consider to be the most depressing work in the world, which nobody should do unless them pay them a whole heap of money, I was confronted by the senior tutor. Large talk posh. The woman asked me politely in her well-cultivated voice if me was born under barbells. And when she talk about me, said to myself, is what barbells have to do with me? So me take my courage in my hand and ask her what she mean. She tell me, say, is younger people were born under barbells is real cockney. So now me going to be nurse me for cultivate new talking. Why? She should have seen how my insides are laugh. Me said to myself, me come to England, come learn to talk like white people. Now the woman I tell me, say me talking like the wrong white people. Why? You can't be yourself in a this your world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I don't know. Is there someone who's got another poem in another language?
I have another poem that features another language. I'm not
Yes,
sure
please.
if that would work. And this poem, maybe what I'll do is I'll share the one which also mentions all the female Orisha. So Didi, you've inspired me to share my poem Womanly Waves. Here it goes. From the wisest depths of a Lokun's abyss, ocean currents compose rhythms of infinite life. Seismic percussion inspires an opus of existence. Splashes of consciousness rousing into triumphant tsunamis. Curious sunbeams shimmer in the blue-green expanse, their skirts twisting and turning on a Lokun's dance floor. Seaweeds, sea creatures marinate in bubbling joy. From this aquatic foray we rise, and still we rise, on womanly waves, carrying forward fluid life. Queen Mother Yamoya surveys her sea protectorate, with watery waltzes forming sashaying shorelines, an artistic swirl sculpting our planetary canvas. The earth, a paint palette of 2/3 vibrant watercolors. Brushstrokes of cheerful clouds drip into sparkling seas. These female bodies of water gather in conversation, marveling at the winding curves of Yemoya's skill, also pouring 2/3 liquid creation into humankind on womanly waves, carrying forward fluid life. To the mystic heights of Oshukpa's moonscape, the aqua language drops from her moist lips, pulling tides twice daily to a temperamental heart. Her high tide luminescence sending ships on adventurous quests, her low tide eclipses revealing secrets beyond the flood. Her celestial chorus serenades lunar womb tides too, from low crimson alto to high scarlet soprano, then howling forth, joining wolf songs of praise. Autumn's hunters spill generative blood, and rivers radiantly run red on womanly waves, carrying forward fluid life. Tributaries play tribute to ocean's flowing beauty, her fertile hydration growing future promise, whetting appetites for impending mindfulness, negotiating gentle gestation to resolution's birth. Oya too propagates humanity's melanated blueprint, lighting fires within tiny, eager beating hearts, sprouting hurricanes within uterine fortresses, as waters bursts and babies ride the cascade on womanly waves, carrying forward fluid life. Yewa brings blessings in her cleansing mists, maternal hands bathing bundles of buoyant joy, rinsing glowing skin and stirring babbling mirth, dousing fresh seedlings with goodness and love, washing away youthful sweat or streaming tears, massaging, nurturing lubrication into supple joints, already sailing fate's estuaries in Olosha's wake, ready for Olokun's wisdom to navigate oceanic possibilities on womanly waves, carrying forward fluid life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I don't know if any of you watched the funeral scene in Sarafina, the musical. You know, where the children have been shot, and there's a funeral, and the pastor says, you know, they hate you children because you are the future. You know, that song, that funeral also ends with a celebration. You know, the celebration, the celebratory song is that freedom is coming. Freedom is coming tomorrow. You know, this is also what I would like the anthology to do, to give us that sense, the sense that freedom is coming tomorrow. And we are part of that by talking about all that is happening, the heartaches, the heartbreaks, the dreams that are being destroyed, the deaths, the hopes as well. You know, always the hope. So, you know, that's why, you know, I asked for more to carry us to the next set. I don't know if there's anyone, before we hand over to Emma, I don't know if there's anyone who wants to say anything. Winding down comments. Yes, Bridget. You're mute. You're still mute.
I would like to do a little bit of sign language to be inclusive. I could do the introduction by Sahara poem. So the children speak Arabic in the poem, and the introduction is in English. It's very obvious reaction to that. No, can you hear me?
Yes.
So what's the reaction? Shall I do it?
No, go ahead. I think no, right?
So one day in the Sahara, a long time ago, can't do numbers, but it was 40 years ago, very far away. The boys and girls were in the village of Ramah, were waiting for the bus. On the bus was the new teacher. But now we have the children. Chauffe, win el bus. J'ai el bus. Chauffe, Mualima, Jadi. You can understand that because of what I've said in English. Here comes, this is the new teacher. A rajul, or oh, got the word. Is it a man? Is it a woman? Shar asfa, yellow hair, long eyes. Makan shijab. Well, akin makan there's no hijab and no beard. Majnun. Is it a crazy person? La, Misha Majnun. Min bled Lokra. From a different place, different town, from far away. The youngest, no, Iman says, Malish, it doesn't matter. Rajul ulamara, man, woman, min bled lochra, ula ejnabin, foreigner, Hanaya, Mualima, it's our teacher, Gul Ellen, welcome, Ellen Igama, and Yusuf Gul, bonjour, ya professeur, because that's foreign, he knows that's foreign.
Thank you, Bridget. Thank you very much. Thank you. And also, you know, to Bridget's question, there are also questions that we need to be talking about that I hope we'll be talking about around the languages that are spoken on the African continent, and how Africans on the continent and in the diaspora are communicating or could be communicating. So there's a whole lot. It also includes questions around translation across the colonial languages, as well as translation across the languages that are spoken on the continent itself. So yeah, there's a lot for us to consider. So if no one wants to say anything, we hand over to Emma.
Just want to say thank you for putting this together and bringing us all together.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you.
I second that, Amanda. Thank you so much, Munya and Ambrose. I feel absolutely unqualified, really, to follow all those beautiful words and all that thought. Dee said, I don't consider myself to be a poet when she started talking, and then went on to completely and utterly disprove that statement with her beautiful words. And I don't consider myself to be a poetry scholar at all. But after a day of running around doing things, I've found this evening's session really nourishing for my mind also, and hugely thought-provoking. So I really want to thank all of you for that, for the poems that were so beautifully read and recited, and for the thoughts that were shared in between them. I've really found it, I know it's a cliched word, but I found it a really inspiring session. So thank you all for that. So I've thanked Munya and Ambrose for partnering on this event, and we really have been very proud to take part in that, and it's a wonderful start to our festival. It's really got it off in fantastic style. So thank you all for that. Please do keep an eye out for the next set of conversations around the anthology, which I believe are happening a week today. Ambrose, will you be able to let people know how to subscribe for that event? And I'll certainly be trying to make it along as well. So we've passed our 7:30 finishing time, so all I'll say again is thank you all very much, and I hope you have wonderful evenings.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Can we give everybody a clap?
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.